Renata's hand trembled as she opened the official envelope. The court's crest was there, embossed, heavy like a sentence. Her heart raced. She had never set foot in a courtroom in her life. She had never done anything wrong. But there it was, a summons with her full name, address, everything. Mandatory appearance. Tomorrow, 9 in the morning. She sat on the edge of the bed, the thin mattress sinking under her weight. The room was small, just a bed, an old wooden wardrobe, and a window that faced the back courtyard. It was all she could afford on a domestic worker's salary. Renata cleaned 3 houses a week, sometimes 4 when she managed to get extra work. She woke up at 5 in the morning, took 2 buses, came back when it was already dark. Her hands were always rough from bleach and soap. But it was honest work. It was what paid the rent and put food on the table. And now this. A court summons. She read and reread the official paper, trying to understand. There was no explanation. Just the address, the room, the time. Her name written by an impersonal computer. Renata felt her stomach churn. Had someone accused her of something? Had one of her employers said that money was missing? She had never taken anything. Never. Not even a coin forgotten on the couch. The night was long. She barely slept. She lay staring at the cracked ceiling, going over the last few days in her head. Everything had been normal. Cleaning at Dona Beatrice's house on Monday. Dr. Cardoso's family on Tuesday. On Wednesday, she had gone to the market to do the week's shopping. It was there in the parking lot that she had found that wallet lying between 2 cars. Renata remembered it perfectly. It was a brown leather wallet, heavy, full of documents and cards. She looked around, searching for the owner. There was no one. She opened the wallet and saw the name, Dr. Augusto Mendez. There was money inside, a lot of money. She counted it without meaning to. It was almost 1,000 reis in 50 and 100 bills. For 1 second, just 1 second, she thought about how much that would solve. The overdue rent. The electricity bill that was already on its second notice. The blood pressure medication she had been putting off. But it was only 1 second. Renata picked up the wallet, put it in her bag, and went straight to the market management office. She explained that she had found it, asked them to keep it, to call the owner. The woman at the counter wrote everything down and asked for Renata's phone number in case they needed any information. And now this. Had they thought she had stolen it? Had the owner believed money was missing and accused her? Renata felt the injustice burn in her chest. She had done the right thing. She had returned it. Why was she being summoned to court then? At 6 in the morning, she gave up trying to sleep. She took a shower, put on the most presentable clothes she had, black pants she wore for more formal jobs and a white blouse without stains. She put on light lipstick, tied her hair back. She looked in the mirror and saw a 42-year-old woman, tired, scared, but with her head held high. She hadn't done anything wrong. The trip to the courthouse was a blur. She got off in front of the imposing building, that enormous concrete and glass structure that had always intimidated her. People in suits went up and down the steps. Lawyers with leather briefcases. Serious security guards at the door. Renata took a deep breath and went in. She passed through the metal detector, showed the summons to 3 different people until she finally found the right room. Room 204, second floor. The dark wooden door had a gold plaque, Dr. Augusto Mendez, Judge. The name from the wallet. Renata felt her legs go weak. It was him. The owner of the wallet was a judge. And she was being summoned by him. Could judges do that? Call people like this, without explanation? She understood nothing about laws, about courts, about how these things worked. She was just a domestic worker who woke up early and worked hard. She knocked on the door with her knuckles, so softly it barely made a sound. A male voice, deep and firm, told her to come in. Renata opened the door. The office was huge. Bookshelves from floor to ceiling, a solid wooden desk, leather chairs. Behind the desk, a man in his early 50s, gray hair, prescription glasses, wearing the most expensive suit Renata had ever seen. He lifted his eyes from the papers and looked directly at her. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment telling us what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. This helps us a lot to keep bringing stories like this to you. Judge Augusto Mendez had an expression Renata couldn't decipher. It wasn't anger. It wasn't coldness. It was something different. He pointed to the chair in front of the desk. "Sit down, please," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. Renata sat on the edge of the chair, her hands clenched in her lap, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. The silence in the office was dense. Judge Augusto Mendez took off his glasses, cleaned the lenses with a cloth he pulled from a drawer, and put them back on. Each movement was calculated, slow, as if he were weighing every word he was about to say. Renata felt cold sweat run down her back, sticking her blouse to her body. "Do you know why you're here?" he finally asked. Renata swallowed hard. "No, sir. I received the summons, but it doesn't say anything. I didn't do anything wrong." He tilted his head slightly, studying her face. "Tell me something. Did you find a wallet in the parking lot of Mercado Central last week?" Relief and fear mixed in her chest. "Yes, sir. I found it. I took it straight to the management office. I asked them to contact you. Everything was inside. I didn't take anything, I swear." He raised his hand, interrupting her. "I know you didn't take anything. I received my wallet intact. That's why I called you here." Renata blinked, confused. "So, I'm not being accused of anything?" "No. Then why a summons? Why call me like this, without explaining anything?" Her voice came out louder than she intended, loaded with all the anguish of that sleepless night. "Do you have any idea how scared I was? I thought I had done something wrong, that I was going to be arrested. I haven't slept properly for days." The judge raised his eyebrows, surprised by her reaction. He was used to nervous people in his presence, but not to this raw honesty. "I apologize if the way I handled this frightened you. That was not my intention." Renata felt tears burn in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of him. You have power, doctor. You have money, you have status. For you this is just another piece of paper, another person being summoned. But for me? For someone like me? A court summons is the end of the world. I could lose my job just for missing work today. I could lose everything." He remained silent for a long moment. There was something in his gaze that Renata couldn't identify. It wasn't pity. Perhaps it was recognition. "You're right," he said softly. "I didn't think of it that way." Renata took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Now that the initial fear had passed, anger was beginning to rise. "If I'm not being accused, then why am I here?" The judge stood up and walked to the window that overlooked the busy street below. He stood there, hands in his pockets, watching the traffic. "I've worked in this court for 27 years, he began, his voice different now, more human. "I see all kinds of people pass through here. Thieves, con artists, corrupt individuals. People who lie while looking me straight in the eyes, who try to buy witnesses, who would do anything for money." He turned back to her. "And then I lose my wallet. There was almost 1,000 reis in it, important documents, credit cards with no limit. I was coming back from a meeting. I had withdrawn the money to pay for a service. When I realized it was gone, it was already too late. I went to the market the next day, without much hope, and they told me that a woman had turned it in. Everything intact. Not even a coin missing." Renata said nothing. She just waited. "I asked for her contact," he continued. "They said she was a domestic worker. That she had left her phone number in case they needed anything. I could have simply called, thanked her, and that would have been it. But something bothered me. I started thinking, how many people would do what you did? How many, needing money, would return a wallet full of cash?" He went back to the desk and sat down again. "I decided I needed to meet you in person. See who this woman was. Understand what made her return something that could have changed her financial life for weeks, maybe months." Renata felt indignation rise inside her. "So you called me here for what? To study me? To see if I'm real? As if honesty were something so rare that it needs to be investigated." "It isn't rare," he replied, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. "It's almost extinct." The office fell silent again. Outside, car horns blared. The city continued its frantic rhythm. Inside, two people from completely different worlds stared at each other. "You want to know why I returned it?" Renata asked, her voice firm now. It wasn't because I'm a saint. It wasn't because I didn't need the money. I do need it very much. My rent is overdue. Bills are piling up. I work 6 days a week and can barely pay for the basics. She paused. But I looked at that wallet and thought, this isn't mine. That's it. It doesn't matter how much I need it, it's not mine. And if I took it, how would I look at my reflection in the mirror? How would I sleep at night? Judge Augusto nodded slowly, as if she had confirmed something he already suspected. That's exactly it, he said. Character. It's not about having or not having money. It's about who you are when no one is watching. Renata stood up. Can I go now? I've already lost my morning of work. I need to see if I can make up the hours this afternoon. Wait, he said, opening a drawer. He took out an envelope. This is for you. Renata looked at the envelope without taking it. I don't want a reward, doctor. That's not why I returned it. I know, he replied. But accept it anyway. It's not charity. It's recognition. She took the envelope, feeling its weight. Inside, there was money. A lot of money. But there was also something else. A card with an address and a phone number. That's the contact information for the social program I coordinate, the judge explained. We help people find better opportunities. Jobs, courses, training. If you're interested, get in touch. Renata looked at the card, then at him. There was something he wasn't saying. She could feel it. 3 weeks passed. Renata kept the card in the drawer of the dresser, together with old bills and documents. She looked at it sometimes, usually at night when the exhaustion of the day weighed on her shoulders. The money from the envelope had taken care of the overdue rent and the most urgent bills. For the first time in months, she managed to sleep without that tightness in her chest. But the card was still there, kept away, untouched. She didn't quite know why she hesitated. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear that it was too good to be true. People like her didn't receive opportunities like that. Not overnight. Not from a powerful judge. There was always a price to pay, always a second intention. At least that was what life had taught her. It was on a Thursday, during lunch at Dona Beatrice's house, that everything changed. Renata was in the kitchen, eating rice and beans she had brought from home, when she heard raised voices in the living room. Dona Beatrice was talking on the phone, her tone nervous, almost desperate. Renata didn't want to listen, but the house was small and the words came through clearly. I don't know what else to do, Julia. The treatment is extremely expensive. The insurance doesn't cover it. And I don't have that kind of money saved. A pause. Of course I'll sell whatever I have to, but that takes time. And the doctor said it can't wait. Renata felt her heart tighten. She had known Dona Beatrice for 3 years. She was a widowed, retired woman who lived alone in that simple house. She had always treated Renata with respect, always paid on time. She was never one of those employers who watched every move, counting every minute. She was a good person. When Dona Beatrice hung up the phone, Renata went to the living room. The woman was sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. She looked like she had aged 10 years in that instant. Dona Beatrice? Renata called softly. The woman lifted her face and tried to smile, but her eyes were red. Oh, Renata. I'm sorry, I didn't want you to hear that. Did something happen? Dona Beatrice sighed deeply. It's my sister. We discovered a tumor 2 weeks ago. She needs surgery urgently, but the insurance is denying coverage. They say it's an experimental procedure, those things they invent not to pay. Her voice trembled. And I don't have the money. I'm trying to sell some jewelry, some furniture, but there won't be time. Renata sat beside her. She didn't say anything for a moment, she just stayed there. Sometimes presence alone was enough. But then something clicked in her mind. The card. The social program the judge had mentioned. Did they help with things like that? Probably not. That was for jobs, training. But what if? That night, Renata picked up the card and dialed the number. A female voice answered on the second ring. New Paths Program, good evening. Good evening, Renata said, her voice uncertain. My name is Renata. Dr. Augusto Mendez gave me this contact a few weeks ago. He said I could call if I needed to. Oh yes. You're the woman with the wallet. The doctor mentioned you. Please hold for a moment, I'll transfer you. Before Renata could ask who she was being transferred to, the line changed and the judge's deep voice was on the other end. Renata, he said, and he sounded genuinely surprised. I didn't expect you to call. I didn't either, she admitted. But it's not for me. It's for someone who needs it more than I do. And then she told him about Dona Beatriz, about the sick sister, about the time that was running out. She spoke quickly, barely breathing, afraid he would hang up or say he couldn't help. When she finished, there was silence on the other end. Please, Renata said, her voice breaking. I know this isn't the kind of thing the program does. But you talked about opportunities. That woman needs an opportunity. She needs more time with her sister. The judge took a deep breath. Give me her full name and the hospital where she's being treated. I'll see what I can do. Really? Renata could hardly believe it. Really? But I want you to come here tomorrow. Same time. We need to talk. Renata hung up the phone with trembling hands. She didn't know if she had done the right or wrong thing. She didn't know if she had been too intrusive, if she had asked for something impossible. But she had tried. She had used that one chance not for herself, but for someone who needed it. The next day, she was once again in the judge's office. He was standing by the window, like the first time. But now his expression was different. There was something like admiration there. The surgery is scheduled, he said bluntly. For next week. The hospital accepted an anonymous donation that covers the entire procedure. Renata felt her legs go weak. Did you do this? I know people, was all he said. Then he stepped closer, resting his hands on the desk. But now I want to know, why didn't you ask for anything for yourself? Renata shrugged. Because I can manage. I always have. But Dona Beatriz, she had nowhere else to turn. And I had this contact. It felt wrong to use it only for myself. The judge shook his head, almost in disbelief. Most people would have used this opportunity to solve their own problems. They would have forgotten the employer, focused on themselves. Most people aren't bad, doctor, Renata replied. Most people are just tired. But that doesn't erase kindness. He smiled, a small but genuine smile. You surprise me, Renata. More every day. He picked up a folder from the desk. And that's why I prepared this for you. He handed her the folder. Renata opened it slowly. Inside were documents, forms, a job offer. It wasn't cleaning. It was coordination. It was a salary 3 times what she earned. It was fixed hours, vacation, benefits. I need someone I can trust to coordinate the program's home visits, the judge explained. Someone who understands people, who knows what it's like to need help. Someone who uses opportunities not for themselves, but for others. Renata looked at the papers, then at him. The tears finally fell. Renata accepted the job. She started the following Monday. The first few days were an emotional roller coaster. She, who had always cleaned houses, who had always taken orders, was now coordinating a team. She visited families, assessed needs, decided who received help. It was too much responsibility. Too much trust. But she discovered something about herself. She was good at it. She understood people. She knew when someone was hiding shame behind pride. She knew when a family needed food, medicine, or just someone who would listen without judging. She had lived all of that. She knew the language of silent desperation. 2 months passed. Renata's life changed completely. She rented a better apartment. Bought new clothes. Managed to save money at the end of the month. But what changed the most was how she saw herself in the mirror. There was dignity there now. There was purpose. Until one Friday, Judge Augusto called her to his office. She climbed the courthouse stairs with a tight feeling in her chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something else. He had been too generous. He had changed her life without asking for anything in return. That bothered her. Because deep down, Renata knew that no one gave anything for free. There was always a price. When she entered the office, there was someone else there. An elegant woman, around 60 years old, white hair pulled into an impeccable bun. She was sitting in the chair Renata had used the first time. The judge was standing by the window, tense. "Renata," he said, his voice strangely formal. "This is Dr. Cecilia Mendez. My wife." Renata felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. He had never mentioned being married. Never spoken of family. And now, looking at that woman, she saw something on her face that made her understand everything. It wasn't curiosity. It was suspicion. "Nice to meet you," Renata said softly. The woman did not respond. She simply studied her from head to toe, like someone evaluating a painting in a gallery. "So you're the girl with the wallet?" "Yes, ma'am." "My husband has talked a lot about you," Cecilia continued, her tone cold. "About how special you are. How different. How you have rare character." She paused. Special enough for him to create a new position in the program. Special enough to receive a salary far above what we pay the other coordinators. Special enough for private meetings every week. Renata felt her blood run cold. She looked at the judge. He was pale, but he did not defend her. He said nothing. "I didn't," Renata began. "There's no need to explain," Cecilia interrupted. "I know exactly how these things work. A beautiful, humble, grateful woman. A powerful man, lonely in his marriage, wanting to feel important. Wanting to be the savior." "Cecilia, enough," the judge finally said, his voice hard. "You are crossing every line." "I'm crossing lines?" She turned to him, her voice rising. "You're the one who hired this woman without consulting me. You're the one who has private meetings with her. You're the one who talks about her at home as if she were a saint. And I'm the villain for questioning it." Renata felt the humiliation burn. This was exactly what she had feared would happen. That people would think she had gotten everything for other reasons. That it hadn't been character, work, merit. That it had been something else. "Excuse me," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm leaving." "No," the judge said firmly. "You're not. Cecilia, you need to hear the truth. The whole truth." He stepped closer to his wife, but kept his distance. "You want to know why I hired Renata? Why she is special to me? I'll tell you." He took a deep breath. "When I lost that wallet, there was more than money inside. There was my father's wedding ring. The one he gave me before he died. The only thing of his that I still have. You know how much that means to me." Cecilia blinked, anger giving way to surprise. "When I got the wallet back," he continued, "everything was there. The money, the cards, the ring. Renata could have taken anything. She could have sold that ring and gotten more than the money that was inside. But she didn't. She returned everything." He turned to Renata. "And when I met her, when I saw who she was, I understood something. I spend my days judging people. Deciding who is guilty, who is innocent. And I had forgotten that there are still good people in the world. Genuinely good. Not out of interest. Not out of fear. But because that is who they are." Tears were running down Renata's face now, uncontrollably. "I hired her because I needed someone like that in the program," the judge said. "Someone who understands that helping people is not about power. It's about humanity. And yes, I pay her more than the others. Do you know why? Because she is worth more. Because she does the job better. Because she changes lives." He looked at his wife. "If you want to question my integrity, do it. But do not come here to destroy the dignity of a woman who did nothing but be decent in a world that punishes decency." The silence in the office was absolute. Cecilia looked at Renata, then at her husband. The coldness on her face began to crack. I didn't know about the ring." "You didn't know because I didn't tell you," he said. "Because I was processing everything alone. And in doing so, I ended up creating situations that could be misinterpreted. The fault is mine, not Renata's." Cecilia stood up slowly. She approached Renata. "I'm sorry," she said, and there was sincerity now. "I let insecurity speak louder than reason." Renata nodded, still trembling. "I understand." The woman left the office, leaving them alone. The judge sat heavily in the chair. The judge ran a hand over his face, exhausted. Renata remained standing, her legs still trembling, her heart beating out of rhythm. The humiliation still burned, even after the explanations, even after the apology. "Sit down," he said, pointing to the chair. She sat, but kept her posture straight, her head held high. She wasn't going to bow now. Not after everything. "I owe you an apology," he began. "I created a situation that exposed you. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't think about how people would interpret it." Renata took a deep breath. "You don't owe me anything, doctor. You gave me an opportunity. You changed my life. But I think now I understand that some opportunities come with a weight I wasn't prepared to carry. Are you going to resign?" The question came directly, without beating around the bush. She thought for a long moment. She thought about the new apartment, the money saved, the feeling of waking up without fear of the next day. But she also thought about his wife's look, about the suspicions that would always exist, about the gossip that was certainly already spreading among the program staff. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I don't want people to think I got this for the wrong reasons. I don't want them to look at me and see something I'm not." The judge stood up, went to the bookshelf, ran his fingers along the old spines. "Do you know what I've learned in all these years in court? That no matter what you do, there will always be someone to distort it. There will always be someone who can't believe that kindness is real, that honesty exists. Because for those people, admitting that would mean admitting that they themselves failed to be good." He picked up a book, but didn't open it. He just held it. "You can walk out of here now. You can go back to the life you had. And you know what will happen? Nothing. Life will go on the same. Or you can stay. You can prove to yourself, not to me, not to my wife, not to anyone, but to yourself, that you deserve to be here. That the work you do matters. That the lives you touch every day are worth any gossip, any sideways glance." Renata felt something change inside her. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. "You're right," she said, standing up. "I'm not leaving. But not because I'm proving anything to anyone. I'm staying because there are families waiting for me. There are people who need someone who understands. And I understand. I know what it is to need." He smiled, a small smile but full of pride. "That's exactly the answer I expected from you." Renata walked to the door, but stopped before leaving. "Dr. Augusto, may I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Why did you really do all this? And don't tell me it was just because of the wallet. It was more than that. I can feel it." The judge remained silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower, more vulnerable. "My father was a doorman. He worked 40 years in the same building. He died of exhaustion, literally. A heart attack at 58. He never had anything. But he was the most honest man I ever knew." He looked at Renata. "When I saw you return that wallet, I remembered him. And I thought, if someone had given my father an opportunity, how different would his life have been? So I gave you the opportunity one could never give him." Renata felt the tears return, but this time they were different. They weren't from pain. They were from pure gratitude, the kind that doesn't need words. "Thank you," was all she managed to say. And she left. 6 months passed. Renata stayed with the program. The work was hard, emotionally draining. She saw misery every day. She saw families without food, children without prospects, adults without hope. But she also saw change. She saw people getting jobs. She saw children returning to school. She saw houses transform, lives rebuilt. And one Friday afternoon, she was reviewing reports when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello. Renata." A female voice, familiar. "It's Beatriz. Dona Beatriz." She hadn't spoken to her former employer since she had changed jobs. "Dona Beatriz. How are you? How is your sister?" "My sister is well. She recovered completely from the surgery. She's alive, Renata. Because of you." "It wasn't because of me. It was." "It was," the woman interrupted firmly. "It was because of you. You called, you asked for help. You could have used that contact for yourself, but you used it to save a stranger." Her voice trembled. "I will never forget that." Renata hung up the phone with a smile on her face. She looked around the small office that was now hers. The walls full of photos of families she had helped. Smiling children. Adults with dignity back in their eyes. She thought about the wallet she had found 6 months earlier. How a simple choice, made in an ordinary parking lot, had changed everything. Not just for her, but for Dona Beatriz. For her sister. For all the families she now helped. And she understood something important. It wasn't the big decisions that defined a life. It was the small ones. The choices we make when no one is watching. When it would be easier to do the wrong thing. When no one would ever know. It was returning a wallet. It was calling to help someone else. It was getting up every day and choosing to be decent in a world that didn't always reward decency. Renata grabbed her coat, turned off the computer. Tomorrow would be another day of hard work. Another day of heavy stories, of problems without easy solutions. But it would also be another day of making a difference. Of being who she chose to be. And in the end, that was all that mattered. If you liked this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment telling us what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. Your interaction helps us keep bringing stories that touch the heart. Until